Hey everyone, welcome to the 48 Days Eagles Open House Call. We are so glad everyone has joined us. I'd like to introduce Kent Julian, who is our speaker today. He's the Dean of Speaking in the 48 Days Eagles community. My name is Sheila Davis and I'm on the 48 Days Eagles support team. I've got Ashley and Dan here. I'm going to get them on with us while Kent tells you a little bit about our topic today.
Well, greetings, everyone. I'd love for you all looking at how many attendees. By the way, you're going to see me look over here from time to time because I've learned to keep my chat box open over there so that I can actually look at it. So I'd love for you just to introduce yourself and say hi and where you're from. That would be great. And today, once we get Dan on here, today we're going to be talking about how to create a six-figure revenue from speaking in 15 hours a week or less. So Dan and Ashley, it's so great that you'll join my webinar here. I'm glad you finally got on and joined me today.
Sometimes we have trouble getting on these things. Technology, you gotta love it.
Yeah.
Hey,
we just
promoted,
Dan, we just promoted before you got on a cruise with you. And the first two people that signed up are all expense paid. So they're really excited.
have rock and roll. I want to sign up.
Right. Those first two people were Kent and I, so.
Well, hey, as always, this is welcome into our Monday Mentor Call, where every week we highlight a topic that's going to make you smarter and wealthier. And this is certainly one of those. We're going to have fun talking about speaking. Kent's got a wonderful journey that he's been on to both bless his family and a lot of other people and inspire a whole lot of other people as well. We'll hear about some of those stories today. So Kent, you're known here as our Dean of Speaking. For those who are Eagles members, you're a familiar face here. So thanks for spending your time with us today.
Hey, my pleasure. Excited to be here.
And before we jump right into that, as always, Ashley's got some announcements for our Eagles community about upcoming things that are happening here. So Ashley, go ahead and open us up.
All right. And first off, thank you, Sheila and Kent, for carrying us while we first get on and get logged on. I'm going to figure out what in the world is happening that we're not able to log in, but we will get it figured out. So our announcements today, first and foremost, is welcome to all of you who are not Eagles. This is an Eagles open house. So this is an opportunity for you to have brought a friend today. And we've also shared it just in our public newsletter so that this is an invitation for others to learn more about some of these conversations we have in the Eagles community. So before we get into our topic today, we just want to give you a few reminders and give you a taste of what all you can expect in this community as well. So first is the chat. And as you already heard from Kent, he references it. He loves to engage with the chat. We love to engage with the chat. Sheila and I are active in the chat and we'll be commenting and responding. We're also going to be pooling any questions that there are and making sure that we can get those to Dad and to Kent so that they can cover them on the call as well. And this is also a great place for you to share your takeaways, your ahas, or anything else. Oftentimes somebody will say, wait, what did somebody just say? And somebody else in the chat usually fills in the blanks and helps each other out. Also on the replay for this, that also helps because in the chat, you can go back and you can see all of those comments as well. So, and on that note, just a reminder, you will be getting a replay of this. So if you're listening in today, all of our Eagles know they always have access to all of the Monday Mentor Call replays. And for those of you who are listening in, we'll follow up with an email where you'll get a replay as well. All right, so things that are going on this week in the Eagles community. I typically take this time to give some announcements, so I'm going to do some for this week and a little bit of a bird's eye view of what all is going on this month as well. So this week, our office hours, which are on Tuesday nights from 7 to 8 p.m. Central, are going to be hosted by Jen McDonough. Now, this is a great time to ask Jen questions about the Eagles community, about why she's in the Eagles community, where to find things in the Eagles community, and also more about this topic. And the reason we asked Jen to come in as the office hours for this night is because she works with high stress organizations to cultivate resilient team members who can walk through any fire. And yes, she has her own fire stories to share. Jen and her family are most known for paying off their $212,000 worth of debt and medical expenses in 4 years. And their story has been featured in local, national, and international media. So Jen participated in Kent Julian's Paid to Speak program, and she's going to share more about that because her speaking has really taken off, and a lot of it was things that she learned from Kent as well. So that's going up on Tuesday. Then on Thursday, we've added something new for our Eagles. Instead of waiting for an Eagles Nest, which we do quarterly, where we allow people to deep dive in a smaller group and get to know about a specific topic, we'd had an Eagles one-on-one for that. And we've decided to expand that to something that is a weekly offering for people that need support. So every Thursday, we have been doing an orientation call, and we alternate between doing this in the evening or doing this in the afternoon. So I'm going to be hosting this week's orientation call, and it will be Thursday at 7 p.m. Central. And this is a great opportunity to come ask your questions, get a video tour of the community. I can show you the ropes or help you to learn how to make the most out of your Eagles membership. So this is a great opportunity for those of you who are brand new, or if you just want to refresh your course, or maybe you feel overwhelmed and you want to know, where do I start? So I was just talking with Sheila right before this about some great insights that Elizabeth shared in the first orientation call that we have all been echoing in every orientation call since then. And I absolutely love some of the ideas and the way everybody collaborates and flows together on these orientation calls so that we all can get the most out of our membership. Also this week, we have our Eagles hotline. This is a benefit of our Eagles membership, and this is gives you an opportunity to call and talk with a real person anytime between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Monday through Saturday. And this week, it's being answered by Dan Warheide. Dan is an Army veteran. He's a marketing enthusiast and a transformation coach. He helps people to live into their passion and purpose, find more meaning in their work and their lives, and make more money. He's passionate about connecting with others and would invite you to share a call, or invite you to call and share something that you are working on. And this is a great opportunity to get to know other Eagles or ask those questions when you go, oh, I wish I could talk to a real person and get an answer. I know I was just dealing with Amazon chat, and boy, it's so nice to just be able to pick up the phone and call somebody. All right, our upcoming events. These are things that we just have coming down the pipeline. We wanted to share with you for those of you who are in here, maybe because it's an open house and you're curious about what else there is in the Eagles community. We have some other people or other things that are coming up. Next Monday mentor call, which is on March 21st, we're going to have Erin Casey. This is an Eagle from our own community. We love to highlight our own Eagles and share their stories. Now, Erin is the author of 3 books, and she's a writing and publishing coach with 200 plus published clients. So we are really excited to pick her brain and get insights from her and kind of hear about her stories and her experience. We'll also be having our Eagles Connection call on Tuesday, March 22nd at 7 p.m. And this is a time we set aside each month to network and connect with other Eagles members. This is for Eagles by Eagles. It was an idea that was delivered to us by Quinn Harwood, who said, hey, what about we do some sort of networking call? And he then was so generous and kind as to say, I will head it up. And so he has been leading these connection calls with Jason Goff. They've been doing a wonderful job with it. And it has been something that a lot of people have been enjoying every month. Then on Monday, March 28th and Tuesday, March 29th, we're going to be jumping into our book study of The Magic of Thinking Big. We are picking a book every month and going through it together the last week of the month. And I will have to admit, we happen to be a bit of book lovers. And so what has happened is we aren't doing just 12 books. We had to add in even more books. So we even have some bonus book studies that we're doing, and we're talking about books in our community because we recognize the power in the written word and those things that we're seeing that really spur us on and get us excited. And we love to share those insights in the community. The number of book shares and quotes on things that have meant a lot to people in the community have been really great to see lately. Then we have a Monday mentor call every Tuesday. So just like you're on today, or I'm sorry, every Monday at 2 p.m. Central, we have a Monday mentor call just like today. And you can watch it live or you get to catch the replay. And the replay is found through our podcast that you can access. It's an exclusive podcast that is for the Eagles community, and also in our resources on our pages. Then we also have that Tuesday office hours every Tuesday where we can continue the topic from that Monday mentor call. And so if at this point, with all of these things that we have going on with the hotline and with office hours and with our Monday mentor calls and our opportunity to engage and connect with other people that are also looking for their right idea, their right network, and their right mindset, this is an area where we can all support one another. So if you would like to check this out, feel free to type, "I want to check it out," in the chat anytime during our call today. And what we're going to do is we're going to send you a special trial membership link, and we will send it directly to you. If you say it, we will send you a private chat message right there for that. We're going to also be sharing the replay, like I said, with all of our guests, and then that will include the special offer as well. So if you are ready and you know you want in, you can go ahead and type it in the chat at any point, and we will get that over to you. And finally, every week, we also love to do a special shout out. Oftentimes we get these curated because I post on Fridays and ask people to share their wins and let us celebrate with them on how they are moving forward into the into the life they thrive in. And so this week we want to give a special shout out to Dustin Reichman. He wrapped up his first small group partnership marketing workshop last week. Every member was able to book several targeted podcast guest opportunities and other partnerships. He shared, "I knew the system worked, but seeing how effective it was in a small group setting is super fulfilling." That is amazing. I love seeing when you create something, you lay out the process, and then you see people that follow the process and it works and you have that actual success. That is amazing. That's obviously great affirmation for you that it is working, and we want to celebrate that with you. So congratulations. All right, and with that, I will turn it over and we will talk about speaking. So there you go, Dan and Kent.
All right. Thanks, Ashley. Absolutely. We're going to talk about speaking. You know, Kent, a lot of times when we approach this topic, you know, people immediately think about Simon Sinek or, you know, Tony Robbins or Brene Brown or Kent Julian. But, you know, when it comes right down to it, we all need to know how to speak effectively. If you want to be a Sunday school teacher or talk to your local Rotary, or if you're a mom or a teacher, anything. So start us off, kick us off. I'm going to be quiet and let you just kind of walk us into this, and then we'll have questions. If you have questions, if you're a live listener here today, put in questions. We'll hammer Kent with those, and I've got plenty of questions if we run out. So glad to have you here, Kent.
Yeah, it's great to be here. And it is. Communication's so huge. And that's coming from somebody who could not read in third grade. That's me. If you would have read a list of the sounds I couldn't make, the letters that I couldn't make, if you would have read that list when I first went to speech therapy, I often joke they need to share the letters that I could say, because that was a lot smaller list than the letters I couldn't say. So yeah, so speaking has been great for me, not just now professionally, but it's just something that I've had to overcome in my own life. And so if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Well, that's encouraging. Your story is so powerful.
Yeah, so that is encouraging. And this, if I'm not mistaken, this is about how do you use those 15 hours if you do want to end up growing speaking. So what I like to say to people is speaking is one of these things where you can use it one of three ways. You can add it to your already existing business, and you can use it to market or create revenue. You can definitely, if you're looking to do it, side hustle. Speaking is a great side hustle, just a great side hustle, because it doesn't, the way that you do it, it really can fit into 15 hours, big time. It really can, because I've been running a 6-figure business, speaking part of my business. So if you just take out speaking and look at that part of my business, it has never, ever, people are always amazed by this. It has never been a full-time job for me, ever. Even though it's a six-figure stream of revenue, it's never been full-time. And so it is really designed to be able to do it as a side hustle, because if you reach out too much in speaking, you're going to bug people and push them away. So you actually have to do less. Doing less is actually more. And then it's also great for anybody who wants to get to the place where it's like a six-figure business, where it's quote full-time, even though unless you're on the road 70 or 80 times a year, I don't see how it ever becomes quote full-time as far as time wise. That's why I have so many different streams of revenue, is because I don't want to be on the road 70, 80, 90 times a year. I like 35. I like that many. I call them engagements. It's probably means that I'm speaking 75 to 100 times during the year, like I'm on stage that much, but it's usually about 35 engagements. So anyway, that's just kind of a backdrop of the way you can get involved in speaking. It just add it to your business, do it as a side hustle, or go into it full time. Now I do have some slides if you want me to show those, Dan.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Sure. Give us the basics. Again, you're building the anticipation, and I know anybody listening is going to have questions about how they can use it. And I love how you set that up. Doesn't have to be full-time or nothing. No, we can all use it in some way effectively with what we're already doing.
Absolutely. And so, for instance, people have gone through my training. There are people like Jen who are more like me, where they're full-time. Jen's a great example of multiple streams of revenue too, but there's a lot of people who've done it to where they're saying, this is what I want to do. However, there's just as many people who say, I want to add it as a side business, or I want to add it to what I'm already doing. And so today was all about so how do you do 15 hours? Like, what would you do with your time? So here's what to me is encouraging. I'll go ahead and share this screen. Dan, can you see this? Can you see my screen?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Sure can.
So this is coming straight out of what we do at the Paid to Speak conference. When we start talking about the business side of speaking. So what we do is we look at who you are, how you're wired, what makes you tick, because that's the first thing. We call that the base. Then we look at, okay, how do you build a brand? How do you become a messenger and share a message? But then the third section that we look at, and where we spend the vast majority of our time, is on business. And I always encourage people at the beginning of this section in the Paid to Speak conference, I encourage them with these thoughts. Okay. This is what, and by the way, Dan, I took these pictures of me, my little pictures there. Those are from one of the first times I was ever at the sanctuary. So you can tell my goatee is a little bit grayer now.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Than back then. But it was a hot day, and we took them outside, and I was sweating like a horse. So every time I see these pictures, it cracks me up. It was summer too. That's why I was so tan there. Anyway. So this is what I do not do to market my speaking. I really want you to hear this, because to me, this is what makes speaking such a great thing to do in 15 hours. All these things, I do not do these on the speaking side of my business. I do not blog, period. Do not blog. Okay. So I don't have to worry about blogging. I don't podcast. Now I do a podcast, but it has nothing to do with my speaking business. It has to do with my speaker training business. And I'm able to do my speaker training business because speaking doesn't take me a long time to market or to run the business. So I don't blog, I don't podcast, I don't use lead magnets. And in fact, I'm not trying to necessarily capture email addresses. Okay. So I don't do a newsletter. I mean, all these things are weekly things that people do. Now, do I do a newsletter? Do I have lead magnets? Absolutely. But they're all for my what I would call my B2C, which I'll explain in a minute, my B2C business, not for my speaking business, which is B2B. I don't have a social media plan really. And social media helps a little bit, but it's not going to get you booked to speak. I mean, it might, but it's definitely not out of the top 10 things you should do to get booked as a speaker, social media is a distant 10th, if not further back. I don't do Facebook ads. Okay. There's a lot of things you don't have to do if you want to get booked to speak. I don't do Google ads. Google ads actually do. There are speakers that use Google ads, but it's usually an established speaker who is using Google ads. And they're probably paying, $4 or $5 grand in an ad to get one $20,000 engagement. Okay. I don't do TV, radio, or PR exposures. I don't do webinars. I don't do this right now. This is not for me to get booked as a speaker. This is for another thing. Dan, you're laughing and you're smiling. Isn't this great?
It is. I just put in the chat, it's mind blowing to know that all these things that are so common that we think are necessary for marketing are not necessary or even effective for getting speaking engagements.
They're not effective at all, Dan. They're not. Now, what's interesting is, again, you can use these in B2C. And Dan, here's the other thing that's interesting is the way that these things are done. You don't want to do them, but you want to use the same, and we'll get this, the same kind of mindset. And if you use the mindset that most people use when they're doing webinars, when they're doing podcasts, when they're writing blogs, you use the same mindset, you actually attract people who want to book you to speak versus what I always say, what all the other speakers are doing to try to get booked to speak. Don't do what they're doing. You want to differentiate yourself. You want to separate yourself. So we'll get to that in a minute. I don't promote my books. Okay. I have books. I don't promote them to book my speaking. So those are all the things I don't do, which I always try to encourage people at the beginning, because they think, they look at it, they look at trying to get a business off the ground, and you hear so often about, you got to grind it out. You got to grind it out. You got to grind it out. And when it comes to speaking, I don't like that word. I love the word gradual. So can you use your 15 hours and within 3 to 6 months, you're going to book 3 paid speaking engagements? No, because that's not how the industry works. But you don't have to grind. So just think, if you go 6 months and you're doing a blog every week, you're sending a newsletter out every week, you're doing a podcast every week, you've just eaten up your entire 15 hours. But you don't have to do that. You have to be consistent. And if you are consistent gradually over time, you're going to get decision makers know you, like you, and trust you and want to book you. So let me just get through these, and then you and I can have a conversation. We can open it up to chat, ask people can ask any question they want. So these are all the things I don't do. So what do I do to market my speaking? What Kent does do to market his speaking? I basically do 2 things. I develop my message. I get really clear about developing my message, and not just what I'm going to speak on the stage, but I use that to develop website content. I use that to develop any kind of resources, PDFs, things like that I'm going to give away. I develop my message so that when I do send an email to people, that it's definitely designed around my message, and so that they know what my message is going to be and how it connects with their people, so that they'll hire me to speak. And then the other thing is, I market directly to decision makers. Those are the only 2 things I spend my time doing. So when I started and I had 15 hours, that's it. Those were the 2 things I was focusing on: developing my message. And the cool thing about developing your message is you can look at it and say, well, that's just your presentation. And it's not. As you're developing your message, you're developing all this marketing material that you're going to use. And then you take that and you market it directly to decision makers. Okay. So this will kind of wrap up what we just talked about, those 2 things, and we can come back and talk about anything. So I shared all the things I don't do. Then I shared 2 things I do: develop my message, market directly to decision makers. And so I call this simple and straightforward marketing. And it's this: when I started, and especially at 15 hours, the principle that you want to think about when you're marketing is you want to make sure that you spend the most time on the highest revenue generating activities. And so when I looked at podcasting, when I looked at writing a newsletter, when I looked at blogging, all those different things that I listed, they did not produce revenue. They were not revenue producing or revenue generating activities in speaking. And so, and the way that I knew that is there's two insights that I would share with you. One is there's a huge difference between B2C and B2B marketing. B2C is what Dan does primarily. And it's what most people on the online thing, it's business to customer. And so the reason podcasts work so well, the reason blogs work so well, the reason newsletters work so well, the reason going and being a guest on podcasts work so well, all of those things that are very, very valuable, the reason they work so well in B2C, business to customer, is because you have customers listening and you're talking to them one-on-one. And so they're wanting to usually purchase something of value to them. So all of the stuff that Dan's doing to market his 48 days services, it's for individuals basically. And that's why he uses all of those things. When I market my speaker training, that's why I podcast. That's why I write a newsletter, send out newsletter articles from time to time. That's why I guest on podcasts. That's why I'm here. Is one of the reasons I do this kind of stuff is because people who are interested in speaking, they are customer, business to customer. B2B is very different because now I'm going to be reaching out to a decision maker who's making a decision for that organization. I'm reaching out to decision makers who bring in speakers and trainers, and I'm reaching out to them. And so when I reach out to them, I'm not expecting them to find me. I have to go find them and reach out to them and market my services to them. So that's insight number one. Insight number two is a lot of people, when they hear, oh, I've got to reach out to somebody and sell my services to them. And there's a real difference between pushing yourself and I would call that push selling versus serving selling. And so that's marketing. That's insight number two. For me, the way you differentiate yourself from all the other speakers out there is when they reach out, they instantly are trying to say, book me for your next engagement. And what I try to do, and this is what I have learned from being in the online world and doing podcasts and doing all those things, is that when I reach out to decision makers, my first desire is not to have them book me. I do want them to book me, but that's not my first desire. My first desire is to serve them. And as I serve them and give them things of value, what happens is over time, just like we're always talking about in 48 Days Eagles, people buy from people that they know, like, and trust. And so what I'm trying to do is when I reach out to them, my number one thing is trying to get them to know me, like me, and then most importantly, trust me. Trust me that what I'm going to share with their audience is of value. The way I'm going to share it is valuable, and that I'm not going to be a pushy type of person. So that's how I do it. And I like to wrap it up with this, Dan, and then I'll be done. So my idea, if I could put what I do in speaking and how I would use my 15 hours if I was starting from scratch, again, I'm just doing two things. I'm developing my message and I'm marketing directly to decision makers. And so the way that I do that is I say this, I'm going to serve decision makers in my target audience, or excuse me, I'm going to serve decision makers in target markets that I know are interested in my programs or my message, who have the money to book me. That's how I market my services. I'm going to serve them, and I'm going to find target markets that are interested in my programs, and I know have the money to book speakers and are booking speakers. So I'll stop because I know what I just did is open up a like a fire hose and just unload it. So
That's right. Yeah, you did. There's so many things we could jumping off points for what you shared there. And we'll start with Kelly. Kelly says, what do you think is the best way to develop your primary message? I speak on a variety of topics, and that makes it harder for people to say, what is her expertise? I'm working on that.
okay, so Kelly, I would say what you want to do, it's okay if you speak on multiple topics, but you really want to become known for one. And so you want to look for an umbrella that you put everything under. So I put everything, I'll give you an example. I do disc training, for instance. That's one of my breakouts that I do. I'm a general, what you would call motivational speaker. They bring me in usually to kick off a conference. That's usually what I'm doing. In fact, every time I end a conference, I hear, I shouldn't say every time, but I hear often, oh, we wish we would have had you for the opener. Man, our opener didn't have the energy that you had and didn't bring the passion, and, you know, and you're so approachable. Those are things that I try to develop in who I am as a speaker. So I kick off a lot of conferences and things. So, but I've put everything I do under leadership and employee engagement. And then if you were to say to me, well, those are really big topics, in the way that I market my leadership, it's very much to what I would call the middle manager type leaders. So I'm not doing C-suite, I'm not doing executives, I'm not going after those. And so it's a real, like a middle managing leadership that's in the trenches with the people. That's why it's leadership and employee engagement. What you'll hear from Jen tomorrow is Jen McDonough uses the disc, but she's using it in the way she's doing it is, I'm forgetting the terminology she uses. Do you remember that, Dan? It's resiliency.
Oh, okay.
So she does it in resiliency. So when she's looking at the disc, I don't know this, but I'm assuming she's looking at it instead of selling quote disc training. What she's doing is she's looking at it as how each personality ends up becoming more resilient. What do they tap into to be resilient? For me, in leadership, what I'm looking at is,
Yeah, you're frozen up, my friend.
I am.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys are all frozen to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Hey, you are fine, Kent. You can go ahead. It's only Dad that was frozen.
Oh.
Dad is still frozen. So you're good. Keep on
Okay.
going, keep flowing, and Dad will restart his.
Okay. So anyway, that's all that to say, what I'm trying to answer Laura's question here. I think it was Laura. The idea is you want to learn how to package it and position you, whatever you do, position yourself in a certain way. So I position everything under that umbrella. And so the way that I train disc, even though it's disc and it's what Ashley's training and it's what Jen McDonough's training, the way that we're marketing it and the way that we're packaging it and looking at it is very much according to our own unique take.
All right. So be clear on your message. And as you described, have a core message, become known for something. I mean, if we think John Maxwell, leadership instantly, Simon Sinek, know your why. And they have real core messages that they're known for. I think that's really important to not just be a generalist. Now, one of the things that you talk about a lot is contacting the decision makers. And I know people have questions about that. Who are those decision makers? Now, you described the very clear kind of organization you're looking for. It's not an individual, somebody who's in leadership where you can come in and address the issues that leader is talking about. So describe a little bit about your back-end process where you're going to develop a list of, people are asking for that last slide, where people are going to develop a list of the decision makers. Describe a little bit about how you find those and how many you have and what you do to maintain and develop relationships with those people. So it's not just one and done, hire me or don't.
Yeah. And it's not one or done. In fact, what happens is you get you get hired over and over. And then the other thing that happens, so for instance, this year, I've so far on the calendar, I'm almost up to 20. I'm like at 19 engagements. And I'm doing this off the top of my head, but probably 5 of them are repeat engagements. So there are people that have booked me in the past, but another 5 of them are what I would call, they're like spinoff engagements. Somebody heard me at an event, and because they heard me, they either were the decision maker or they went back to the decision maker and said, we need to bring in Kent to do this event. So, but getting back to how do you find those decision makers? And I put this slide up for 2 reasons. One, somebody asked for it, but number 2, this really does explain, again, you want to serve decision makers in target markets that you know are going to be interested in your programs or your message. And you know they have the money to book you. So here's what's interesting. There's a couple different ways you can go about this. And I am huge on what I would call associations, not what I would call, what are called associations. And the reason I'm huge on them is because they have the money budgeted to book speakers. So when you look at, you look at that term, have the money to book me, I could go down, within a 5-mile radius of where I live, not joking, I could find not 100, but probably hundreds. I mean, I could find 100, let's just say that 100 businesses within 5 or 10 mile radius of where I live that have enough money to book me, but they don't put any of that money. They don't have any money for trainers or speakers budgeted. That's the key. So do they have the money to book me? Absolutely. Have they budgeted that money to book me? Probably not. And so let's say I'm looking at 100 businesses within 10 miles of me. And out of that 100, I'm going to be lucky, really lucky, if 10 of them would bring in an outside speaker on a regular basis to speak or train. I mean, you're going to be really lucky. So that's 10%. So that means you'd have to make a list of 1,000 organizations or businesses to find potentially 100 that have a budgeted money to pay for a speaker. And you're going to tick off 900 companies when you reach out to them if they're not at all interested in speaking, in having anybody come in and speak to them. On the other hand, go ahead.
Well, I wanted you to address that a little bit if it fits. That reaching out, you take the initiative and reach out. You don't wait for people to contact you by just having up a fancy website and run Facebook ads. So you are reaching out. In today's environment, it is seen as invasive. Are you reaching out via email, via text?
Yes.
How are you doing
Yes.
that?
Okay, so now here's the difference. Dan, really hear what I just said. If I was doing businesses and just going, hey, let's just kind of take a shot in the dark and go after businesses, I am reaching out. I'm reaching out directly to them. I would tick off all of those businesses that don't want any kind of speaker. Forget me, they don't want any speaker. So now take the same idea and say, okay, now you're going to come up with 100 associations. And by the way, when I talk about associations, we're not talking about 100 different associations. We're talking about an association that's big enough that they have a national presence, and then they have at least some sort of state presence, and they might call them state affiliates, state chapters. So to come up with 100, you only have to really come up with 2 associations that all have state chapters or state affiliates. Does that make sense? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So now out of those 100, and again, it's really only 2 associations, but out of those 100, 90% of them, so 90 out of 100, they do have a budget to bring in speakers and outside trainers. So they actually are looking for speakers and outside trainers. And if you reach out to them correctly, you're not bugging them. What you're actually doing is you're saving them time instead of going on the internet, searching for speakers and trying to figure out the right one. You're coming before them and saying, hey, I'm somebody that serves your market with a message or a program that fits your market, and I want to offer it to you. And so that's how you do it. Now, let me say this, though. What makes me and what Jen is going to share, and anybody who goes through training that I teach, what makes us different is I'm telling you, because I've been out there, I've listened to training that's coming from speaker organizations training other people to speak. What they train speakers to do, it's like there's no, I'm going to use a dating analogy. There's no dating. You're trying to get to marriage or to hit a home run on your first encounter. You are reaching out and you're saying, hey, I see you've got a conference coming up. Would you be interested in this message? I'm the one. I'm going to be the best speaker you've ever had. By the way, if you're not the person I should reach out to, can you please tell me who that person is? Would you like to jump on a 10-minute phone call so I can tell you how wonderful I am? That's how it comes across. And what I say is, no, don't do that at all. Instead, take the long-term approach and say, it's going to take time for this decision maker to get to know me, like me, and trust me. And I actually like the word respect more. So they get to know me, respect me, and trust me. And that's going to take some time. And so the way that I do that is I reach out to them and I let them know, yeah, I'm a speaker and these are my topics. But whether you ever hire me or not, I'm interested in serving you and your organization. And attached is a resource. It's a 2-page PDF on 7 surprising questions great leaders ask. It is yours to use. You can pass it out. There's no, there's no website or anything they have to go to. There's a little bio about me, but I won't even put my website stuff in there because I'm not trying to get all the people they're going to hand that out to know me. I just want to get that event planner, that meeting decision maker to know me, respect me, and trust how I'm going to serve them. And so that's the whole difference there. So yes, you are reaching out, but think about it, Dan, as when I'm reaching out to them, it's like what you do on your podcast. You're giving away all kinds of ideas and information and letting people get to know you. And then finally they get to the place where they go, I trust that Dan's going to be able to help me with starting a business. I trust Dan's going to be able to help me with my career. I'm reaching out to them in the same way. I'm not waiting for them to find me. I'm finding them and I'm reaching out, but I'm wanting them to say, I trust to put Kent in front of my audiences because he's been giving me this valuable information. He's sent me a personal video, a 1-minute introduction, just saying hi to me and giving me another resource. I just get this sense he's going to do a really great job for us.
You know, I love that. I've watched you, of course, in the years that you've developed into the amazing professional speaker that you are, but you use the term TOMA, T-O-M-A, a lot, and it ties right into what you're doing here. Now, we know that in selling, we're told often that most sales come after 7 presentations. So a lot of times when people are speaking, they reach out, one time, gee, they don't hear anything and they just take it off. You reach out again and again and again. And I've seen you give gifts to people, send them mugs, send them things. Describe that TOMA process that you use so effectively. I will. And Jody asked, and I'm not seeing all the comments, but she's asking, do you reach out to them multiple times? Absolutely, I do. And so, that's the way that you create TOMA. So here's why it's only 15 hours. This is what's great. So I really want you to hear this. And then I'll also answer Dan's question. If I reach out to a decision maker every single week, so Dan sends out a newsletter every week. His podcast comes out every week. So out of his podcast coming out every week, there's probably those avid fans that listen every single episode. And then there's others that pick and choose. Same thing with his newsletter. There's probably a percentage that
read every single word. They're like waiting on Friday morning for when that newsletter's coming, and then they devour it. And there's others that will open maybe one out of every 4 and just kind of check it out that way. So the one thing you don't want to do in B2B that you do in B2C, to create Toma in B2C, you put stuff out in front of people on a regular basis, like once a week. In B2B, these decision makers, this is all about their business. This isn't about their personal life. So this is about them running an organization and running these associations. There's multiple things that are going on. When they put on a conference, they're not just hiring a speaker. They're booking locations. They're working with transportation. They're working with catering. They're doing all kinds of stuff. And the reason I know this is for 7 years before I became a speaker, I was an executive director of an association. So I had a ton of stuff on my plate, and it bugged the bejeebies out of me when 2 things about speakers would bug me. One is when they'd reach out and tell me how wonderful they are before I even got to know them. I couldn't stand that. The other thing was when they pestered me and they reached out to me every week. I was like, leave me alone, and never giving me anything of value. So the reason it works so well, if you got 15 hours, now just hear this, to create Toma, you only need to reach out to them about once every 6 weeks, about 8 times a year. That's it. Because if you reach out too much, you're going to bug them. But what you want to do is you want to reach out to them. You never know when they're making decisions about hiring a speaker. And let's say they hire speakers twice a year, once in the fall, once in the spring. Well, what you want to do is you want to be positively coming up in front of them somewhere within 3 weeks or so, of 3 or 4 weeks of when they're about ready to make that decision. So if I've reached out to them and it's my 6th or 7th time over a year period, and every time I reach out, it's positive, it doesn't feel pushy, I'm giving them something of value. It might be a PDF, it might be a 2-minute video they can share. It might even be what Dan was saying, gifts. It might be a book. I've done that with warmer leads. Give them a book, or even a package of 5 books for their leadership teams. And I'm doing this kind of stuff. If I'm always in front of them every 6 weeks or so, then when they're about ready to make a decision, I will have contacted them pretty close to when they're making that decision. And here's the other thing. They're going to compare me to the 40 or 50 other speakers that have been reaching out to them, bugging them. And I'm going to be sitting in such a great light compared to those other speakers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we'll come back to, even in your niche, be careful about just doing what everybody else is commonly doing.
Absolutely.
Figure out how to be distinctive, how to stand out.
Yeah.
We've got, and people are asking here, we need to tell them what TOMA, what the acronym stands for. She'll put it in there.
It's top of mind awareness.
So you're the person somebody thinks about. Now we've got so many questions in here, just a few minutes left. Let me jump into some.
Can't keep up with them.
We've had multiple questions about nonprofits or ministries. Is there a way to make a living doing what you're describing, speaking of nonprofits or churches?
Okay, so all associations, almost every association out there is nonprofit. The vast majority of them are. So they're set, I shouldn't say that, but a lot of them are set up that way. They're either nonprofit, there's some government, there are all kinds of things. The one thing you got to understand about ministry and churches, and this is coming from a guy who was a youth pastor for 20 years. And not only that, in the last probably half of that, so the last 10 years, I was booked a lot outside my church or outside the church association that I served. I was booked a lot to speak in the for lack of a better word, the Christian market or the religious market. And so there's different levels of how much they pay, and the Christian market pays the least. I mean, you just got to, I don't want to burst your bubble, but it pays the least. And there's a reason for it. It's not a bad thing. It's actually a supply and demand thing. So the supply is there's not only full-time speakers out there that are speaking, some of them, but there are a ton of men and women who have a full-time job that are really good communicators, and they have a full-time job as a youth pastor or a pastor, and they might speak 4 to 8 times a year outside their ministry, and they get paid. Well, because they have a full-time job, they don't, they'll look at going somewhere and speaking for 4 times on a weekend and getting paid $1,000 or $1,500. That's great. That's vacation money for them. And they'll do that. And so that's who you're competing against. And the vast majority of, and by the way, they're really good communicators. So it's a supply and demand thing. So one of the reasons I didn't feel called to go into the Christian market, but one of the other reasons is the people who are doing it full time, unless you're like a John Maxwell or someone who has that kind of platform, which by the way, he built as a pastor of a very large church. And then he just moved into that and he's done great with it, but he had a great launching pad. So unless you have that kind of platform, it's almost as if you have to start a nonprofit to be able to pay yourself, because you're not going to make enough in speaking fees. It's a supply and demand thing. So I know that bursts some people's bubbles, but I would also encourage you can take my message is Dan knows this about me. My relationship with Christ is the most important thing in my life. And my message, all the stuff that I'm sharing is biblical. And while I can't share it from stage, when I say I can't, it's not appropriate because that's not why they're hiring me. Everything I'm sharing is biblical. And then I'm free to have conversations with people all the time. So I feel like, why go speak to why be one of the 90% speakers who are speaking to 10% of the people already in church, when I can be one of the 10% speakers who have a faith view like me? They get to speak to 90% of the people and get paid better, way better for it, So that's how I would answer that question.
All right. Now, another tangent on that, and we've got a lot of people who are authors here, and you've been very effective at using your books. I mean, you've written books where you have no desire to put it on Amazon, sell it to the big crowd. It's just a back of the room sale where you can double your speaking fee often because of products you have. And when I think about the Christian market, if you think about somebody like a Beth Moore, I mean, she's got a massive product suite. People are going to walk out with grocery bags full of her product. Address that a little bit, how you can accent your speaking fee by having other sources of income.
And that is one way you could do it in the Christian market. You can really do it that way. That's for sure. Yeah. I have different books that I sell, and I forget just books. This one thing right here, this is a key part of my message, E + R = O. It's not even original with me. It's something that I learned from educators that's made a huge difference. These babies right here, Dan, I bet you I sell 20 grand worth of these every year. I mean, it's a little, and they cost me, I'm almost embarrassed how much to tell you they cost me. I mean,
tell us.
I buy them in bulk. And I think the last time I bought them, they were like 13 cents a piece.
There you go.
And awesome. I sell them live at live events for $3.
Okay.
And I sell them, I sell a bunch of those on my site. People will hear me and they'll say, I want them for my team. For instance, I sell 100 for $125, sold one of those packages yesterday to, Friday. I was saying yesterday, today's Monday. Yeah. Friday to somebody. So yeah. So you can sell all kinds of stuff in the back of the room, and you don't have to be sleazy to sell. If it's really part of your message, my promotion of my resources in the back of when I sell them in the back of the room, it takes me literally 90 seconds while I'm on stage near the end of my presentation. And I can sell, books, wristbands. I can sell a whole slew of things. And it takes 90 seconds to explain them because they're such a part of my presentation. And the way that I sell them is, hey, if you want to take this message home with you, here's an opportunity for you to take it home and go deeper with it.
Okay. All right.
And I know you do probably want me to say something about my event before because I've got a discount code. So let's make sure I do that before we say
Okay.
goodbye.
We'll go ahead. And as I understand, you don't have, you have the dates set up already for that?
I do.
Okay.
Yep. And so let me share this screen again. Let's see. So the dates we have, we have, if they'll just go there, paidtospeakconference.com. Now we've got the dates. I'm having my VA right now proofread everything. The site should be live to register by Thursday, but the dates, we have a Killer Keynote conference and the Paid to Speak conference. The Killer Keynotes only open to 10 people. And it's literally, how do you put together a presentation that's unforgettable? That will get you booked. And how do you do it and be able to present that presentation with no notes? And what's interesting is the reason we only open it up to 10 people is because I train you how to do that on a Tuesday. You work on it late Tuesday afternoon, and the next day everybody presents, and everybody presents like a 20 to 35-minute presentation, and everybody's able to do it without notes, and they do a great job. So it's a pretty amazing thing. So because we do that and we record all those presentations so that you can go back and review them, and because we do that, we can only open it to 10 people. So that's the Killer Keynote. That's on September 13th and 14th. And then the Paid to Speak conference is all on the business of speaking. How do you create a business in 15 hours a week as a side hustle? And that's right afterwards. It's September 15th through 17th. And so those are conferences that are go back to back. You can come to individuals or you can do a combo package. So that's going to be live. And if you use the coupon code 48 days, you will get $100 off whatever package you desire. And I was talking to Sheila about this. What I'm going to do is for the first 3 people. So, you know, if you're going, man, I want to come to this, for the first 3 people that use that discount code, you'll get the $100 off. But on Thursday night, so the first night of the Paid to Speak conference, I'll take those 3 people out to dinner, and it'll be my treat, and they can pick my brain about anything they're learning at the Paid to Speak conference.
And Marlowe's.
Yes, we'll go to Marlowe's. Absolutely.
I know Ken's favorite restaurant. Been there many times. I've been to your conference. My goodness, I have no idea how many times over the years. Always energizing, exciting. We have so many people in the Eagles community who have that's how they got their start in speaking. The podcast that I did that's up right now, I interviewed Jeff Jones. You remember Jeff?
Yeah.
Jeff connected with you. He was a drummer for Big Daddy Weave Christian rock group, then had a wife and 2 kids and thought, man, I need to get out of this. But he has taken his desire to be a performer and a speaker, which are strong desires for him. And he's now a real estate agent, a residential real estate agent. But by using his speaking, performing skills, he does videos about the town he lives in, Mobile, Alabama. And he raised his income by just doing that one thing. It's a delightful story, but he raised his income from $72,000 in 2020 to $353,000 in 2021.
That's awesome.
The speaking in a very unusual kind of application, just delightful.
And Dan, here's what's interesting. He actually went to the conference and he did a good job at getting booked to speak. So he actually was somebody that was going, and I still think he probably does it a little bit on the side, but he just decided, once he got into real estate, he took stuff, but it wasn't like he came to the conference and he was like, oh, I can't do this speaking thing. He was getting booked and getting booked pretty well. He just was like, yeah, I think I like real estate better. He's a homebody and wants to be at home, and which is great. Again, why I don't get on the road more than 35 times a year, because I like to be home too. I love my family.
There you go. The conference is just outside of Atlanta. People are asking, hey, we've got questions. I'd love to be able to talk more about how people just get started. You don't have to go after the big associations and plan to be living out of hotels and airports. We talk about how to get engaged to be a speaker, presenter at your local Rotary Club. There are local organizations that are looking for speakers where if you craft a great 25-minute presentation, you can get opportunities to do that. Now, those conversations always continue in the Eagles community. Kent is our Dean of Speaking, so he responds. You can ask any question in there. And I apologize, we got a lot of questions here that we did not have time to get to in our Monday mentor call, but in the Eagles community, you can ask those questions, tag Kent, and those conversations are ongoing in there. So thanks, Kent, for being with us, for spending this time enlightening us. This is always so exciting. It always gets me jazzed up about why am I not speaking more? You and I went through a training program together on speaking a few years ago, and it helped me clarify, that I didn't want to be out there on the road a lot. So I'm very strategic about choosing the things where I want to speak. But hey, it's been a delight. Always exciting to hear your enthusiasm about what you're doing. I appreciate your character integrity that you bring to the table as well. So we'll connect with you ongoing in the Eagles community. Thanks for being here, Kent. Thanks to all of you who are on the call today for spending your time here with us, and continue to soar like eagles, show other people what it's like to live well.